Now, if you have a component that changes a lot, it's better to use the base and variant pattern. So if you have, how does this work? You create your base component, think of it as a button. You're creating a button, you know everything, how a button looks, how a button must behave when you click on it. And then you wrap it in another component to get the variant of the original. So for example, you use the button, the first button, and you create a danger button or an info button or a disabled button. These are all variants. And you repeat this step as many times you need in your application for every button that you may create. But the problem with this is that things might get weird. You aren't expecting, if you're duplicating the logic of the first button in another button, then things may get out of control. And then you end up with something you don't really want. Very different from the first button. So an example of where we use this at Glovo is oral models. As you can see, we have different varieties of models we show in our application. And each of them contain the same base component, the original base model. This is how it looks like. It's being used in 46 models inside the application. Most of them are lazy loaded, so we don't increase the code base, the chunk size of the application. And it was last modified 6 months ago. And even that modification was, we just changed the opacity of the overlay, and that's it. And it's very important for all the variants to have the same core. So all the logic, like how a model behaves, what happens when two models are open at the same time, or how they should close, it's handled here in this component that hasn't been modified in 6 months. So some basic rules to don't reach scary Terry Morty levels of weirdness. Do not use the base component inside your application, only use the variants. Inside the base component, you have to isolate the core functionality. It's a standard solid principle, closed for modification, and available for extension. Keep prop control. So when you define your base component, don't modify your props, only modify the variants. And take advantage of slots. Slots are a view internal ability to add content in your component, like children in React, for example. So use